Welcome to the premiere episode from the Diversified Fall Protection Headquarters in Westlake, Ohio. Today we have DFP Engineered Systems Specialist Matt Pedner and Director of Project Management Mike Wilson to discuss fixed access ladders, OSHA regulations, and so much more. Matt and Mike, with the new OSHA regulations for access ladders, what are your views on how these will impact companies?
There's a lot of issues right now with ladders because of the new OSHA regulations. In January of 2017, OSHA came out with new walking working services that didn't essentially come into effect until November of 2018. But they really put a hard focus on ladders and the issues of people falling off ladders. OSHA has put a very, very strong case about what needs to be done to get ladders up to a safe, compliant level, from the width of the ladder, the rung of the ladder, distances, on and on and on. So, yes, EH&S and insurance companies and the like are trying very hard to determine what it is that they need to be done, or that they need to do in order to get their ladders up to compliance. The tricky part about it is there's a lot of times where the client, it's not really their fault that the ladder is out of compliance. It's the original construction of the ladder itself and the way it was installed kind of leads to the way that it's out of compliance. So they were kind of reliant on people to install these ladders properly, and were reliant on them to understand what the regulations were to ensure that they were installed properly, but they just weren't. And I think, Mike, from his experience, would be able to speak a little bit deeper into what those issues really are.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, man, we talked a lot about what's the most important part of a ladder, right? It's not just getting a person from one point to the other, it's how safely are you going to get that person from one point to the other, right? And a lot of the things you come across with ladders are a ton of restrictions that hinder you from doing essentially what the ladder was created to do, get someone from one point to the other. One of the biggest restrictions that we see in the field, and maybe this is a thing that worked in the past, but it just doesn't cut it anymore, and that's cages. A lot of ladders have cages on them that were essentially designed at first to be a safety mechanism, but how safe are they really? There's nothing preventing you from still falling with a cage on there, and a lot of times it makes the fall worse. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, are cages even really needed? I don't think so. I think there's a ton of safety alternatives that have came out to make the climbing process a lot easier. A lot of them you touched on with the OSHA things that they're doing to make the ladders wider, to have deeper standoffs, but even from just a pure climbing standpoint, there's so many different bolt-on things that can attach directly to the ladder that don't impede your climb at all, that make it a ton safer for the individual coming up and down the ladder. And a lot of these things you talked about install are very easy to install items.
Sure.
These are out-of-the-box items that can be bolted to a ladder to get a person from ground level or from one roof level to another roof level without having to worry about a cage impeding your climb or anything else of that sort that could get in your way when you're trying to get material or just yourself from one level to another.
Yeah, as many ladders as I've climbed, I personally can't stand cages. I've been told in the past before, and I don't really know how true this is or not, but cages were never originally designed to be a piece of safety equipment. What they were originally designed for is when somebody's climbing up a ladder and they start to get fatigued, you could actually just rest your back up against it, and it gives you a place to just rest, especially before they started putting resting platforms in ladders every 30 feet. That was the original design of what a cage was. It was not meant to be something that would stop you from falling in the event of a fall. To not get too terribly graphic on it, but falling through one of those cages is no different than falling through a meat grinder. You get an arm caught, you get a leg caught, you could severely hurt yourself. And with all the assessments that I do, I'm carrying a lot of equipment with me. I've usually got a backpack on, and climbing up that backpack gets caught on every horizontal hoop on that cage. So you got to lower yourself down, wiggle your way out of it, and climb another couple feet before you get caught again.
I'm trying to direct installs. I'm trying to service contractors. I'm trying to, even the ease for our guys out in the field. I see a lot of things that we're talking about, current ladders, that just don't seem to be up to snuff.
Mm-hmm.
How can a fixed ladder even be improved on? You know, what are things that can be done to improve what's currently there for a fixed ladder?
You know, you look at a ladder and you think, yeah, a ladder is a ladder is a ladder. It's got sides, it's got rungs, and you climb it. There's subtle things that you can do to a ladder that make it just more user friendly. You know, the function of the ladder is still the same, but widening the ladder, the minimum the width of the ladder has to be is 16 inches. If you make it wider, say 20 inches, it's just going to be much easier to climb and much easier to get in and out at the top of the ladder. Other important things is making sure that the rungs are consistently spaced. You know, it's very awkward if you're climbing up and they're spaced every 12 inches, and all of a sudden there's a 14-inch gap. Your mind is going to miss that every single time because of the muscle memory of just climbing each ladder or rung over and over again. Having just, you know, another issue a lot of people that run into is obstructions behind the ladder itself. A lot of clients out there will have things like water pipes or fire suppression, a lot of things behind the ladder attached to that exact same wall. Well, if you've got a 4-inch water suppression pipe that you're trying to climb the ladder, now all of a sudden your foot gets caught on the underside of that pipe as you're stepping, or God forbid steps down on that pipe. You know, there's just another application where you could easily make this ladder simpler by standing the ladder farther off the wall, widening the ladder, keeping the rungs consistent. I mean, it's little tweaks of an existing product that could make it much more user-friendly and functional.
Well, see, now you're speaking my language. When you talk about obstructions in the field, that's the biggest thing we see, right? It's few and far between that you just have a clean surface that you're just mounting to and you just go, right? So when we talk about obstructions, currently a lot of the ladders that we install, that a lot of contractors are installing, you're ordering a ladder from a company. There's set lengths of standoffs, and the standoffs spacing is set as well.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the big things you run into the field is you run into an obstruction. Now you have standoffs that are welded to a ladder that are already set, so then what are we doing? Now we're going back to the van, we're getting the torch or the grinder, we're cutting standoffs off, we're trying to extend them. So now you're essentially fully modifying a ladder in the field. Do you think, for me, as an installer and representing the installers, there has to be a point where we can come to a more modular concept. Why does everything have to be fixed and then all this field modification has to happen? Why does it have to come from the factory that way? Why can't we have a much more modular design? And is that something that you think we can do?
Oh, for sure. And before I even get into that, you know, the question really leads itself, coming from an install standpoint, you know, construction companies install ladders all the time.
Correct.
Going through all those additional processes of cutting these standoffs on, grinding the paint off, then re-welding them into either the proper position on the ladder or modifying new standoffs that are longer, but again, then re-welding them on, repainting them on, that's just a waste of time.
Very true.
It's just a waste of time, it's a waste of efficiency, it's a waste of dollars. Because ultimately the end user wants the ladder up.
Correct.
It's up to you to get the ladder up. Now if you can get the ladder up in 2 hours by having this modular idea that you just talked about versus spending an entire day having to remodify and cut and paste and all these other wonderful things to try to get a ladder up, that's only going to make you look better in the eyes of the client when it's all said and done.
Very true, and I think that's what every contractor's after at the end of the day. Customer service is what drives our business. So having a ladder that you're not in front of the customer modifying and doing all these things right then and there, that you can have something that you can go up, drill your holes, you can set your standoffs at whatever length it needs to be to get your 7-inch minimum spacing on the obstructions. And then you can set a ladder in place that doesn't require any of that welding and stuff. For me as a contractor, that's what I'm after. I want to be able to go somewhere and know, even if I run into scenario D, E, and F, I'm covered. Because A, B, and C, as a contractor, as an installer of this project, and I've been out in the field for 12 years, plan A never works.
No, of course not.
Plan B hardly works. So I want something that's going to encompass all of those, but still give me a little leeway on the back end.
And it's a perfect segue into leading up to the new ladder that Diversified Fall Protection is ultimately designed, Mike. The reason we came out with it is because we looked at the market, we looked at the ladders that were on the market. First of all, very few of them met the new requirements that OSHA that released back in 2017. But then again, all those pain points that you just discussed, we took into account and realized we could make this ladder much simpler to install and much more efficient and much safer and easier to use. So what did we do? Let's talk about the standoff issue first. You're right. Those standoffs on most ladders are welded on, they're put in place, you've got to deal with wherever they are.
Correct.
We made our standoffs modular. So they're a bolted connection rather than a welded connection, so you can put them anywhere on the sides of the ladder that you need to, so they avoid the obstructions on the wall. Now, the second part of those same obstructions is, those standoffs that come welded from the factory are already set at 7 inches. 7 inches is that minimum toe clearance you can have for a ladder. Well, if you've got a 4-inch pipe, you're down to 3 inches, that 7-inch ladder is not going to work. The standoffs that we've created have the ability to adjust from 7 inches all the way out to 14 inches.
So this is something off the shelf that you can buy, just focusing on the standoffs, that can give you modularity from 7 inches all the way to 14 inches
Yes.
to account for obstruction.
That's correct. There's absolutely no more field modifying with this ladder. So not only can you position the standoffs where you need to on the wall that you're connecting it to avoid the obstructions, you can elongate these standoffs to keep yourselves away from that obstruction in the toe clearance. Now, the other thing that we did for our ladder is we made it 20 inches wide rather than 16. Now, why did we do that? OSHA's regulations state that any ladder over 24 feet needs some type of personal fall arrest system, whether it's a vertical lifeline or a davit arm mounted to the top of the ladder with a self-retracting lifeline, whatever the case may be. Quick side note is our ladders are 100% designed to meet all the fall loads of any type of fall protection system you need to put it on there. But when these types of vertical lifelines get installed, most of the time they get installed right down the center of the ladder. If you've got a 16-inch wide ladder, you've only got 8 inches of play on either side of that vertical lifeline. You're getting off that ladder, it's kind of tough, especially a guy my size, to squeeze into 8 inches through that gap there. We made our ladder 20 inches wide to give an additional 2 inches of play, so you've got much more room to move around that vertical lifeline and disconnect, so it's just an easier transition on and off the ladder.
That makes a ton of sense to me. I can't tell you the amount of times we've climbed ladders where they try and put a safety system on something. You get to the top, and to your point, with that, what's supposed to be a safety system in place, it creates a greater fall, a fall potential than not having it there.
Correct.
How do you account for having the safety system and a ladder that has a cage on it? So this new modular design, we eliminate that cage.
That's correct. Our new ladder eliminates the need for a cage. And by 2036, OSHA says the cages will no longer be an acceptable form of fall protection anyways. And I know that seems like it's a long way away, but there's a lot of ladders out there that have a lot of cages. So OSHA's got to give people the time required to get themselves up to compliance.
That makes a ton of sense for me. I'm looking at it, as you know, I look at everything not just from a processing standpoint, but from an installation standpoint. And to me, modularity is key. The less things that are fixed to one set thing, the better. And the biggest part about this is, as a contractor or an installer of this product, I want to be able to not only have ease of install, but then after that, I want to have ease of transition over to my client. I want to be able to bring them out and show them not only are we, hitting all of the OSHA minimums. Let's start with the run width. You talked about the minimum is 16 inches, and we've increased ours to 20 inches. Well, for me, if I'm taking a customer there to do training, I'd want to be able to show them and say, hey, not only did we hit the OSHA standard, but we took it one step above. And for me as a customer, it adds that extra little element of, hey, you guys are not only care about your product, but you care about what we're seeing as well. You care about the ease of access for us as a customer. The big thing that I don't know if we struck on is a lot of the ladders that I see in the field are an old safety yellow. They're chipping away. They are rusted away. Our ladder, I think, provides a dynamic in the fact that it's hot dip galvanized.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm glad you brought that up. I was just going to mention that. So, again, you and I have climbed a lot of ladders in our lives.
Yes, sir.
And those yellow ladders, whether they're powder coated or painted, you're absolutely right. They start to chip, they start to deteriorate, they start to rust. And once people start to see rust on steel, they immediately start to get concerned about the degradation of that steel and how safe is it really to climb this thing. That's exactly why we hot dip galvanize our ladders. So it's completely corrosion resistant. It's going to last a lot longer out there in the field, and it's going to give a greater sense of comfort climbing it, knowing you're not climbing something that has rust all over it.
Well, Matt, at the end of the day, why is this ladder better? What makes me want to say, you know, I want to call Diversified Fall Protection and buy this ladder? I don't want to go to anywhere else. I know what's out there. I know the leaders in ladder manufacture. But at the end of the day, I want Diversified Fall Protection's ladder. So I want, right now, Matt, I'm not your friend. I'm not your coworker. I'm a contractor. I come to you and say, Matt, I see you have a ladder out there. I see your Easy Series access ladder. Cool name. It got me in the door. Good job. Why is your ladder better? Why do I need to buy this ladder instead of just going down the street and buying another ladder?
Well, the first question I would have for you is if you went down the street and bought that other ladder, how long do you think it would take you to put that ladder up?
I at least have a day in there, and I don't know if I need to make any field modifications.
Okay. With our ladder, you don't need to make any field modifications whatsoever. How much time do you think that would save you?
I'd say you're able to keep me in the room. Like,
Okay.
you can keep talking.
Okay. So if I could tell you, you could probably put up 3 of our ladders for every one of the competitors' ladders every day. Is that a good use of your time?
Absolutely.
Does that increase your efficiency?
Absolutely.
Does that ultimately increase the dollars that go back into your pocket?
It sure does.
Then why wouldn't you buy our ladder?
I mean, I may ask why wouldn't I buy the ladder, because I see Easy Series ladders now, right? I see a ladder that has come out of nowhere. So what stops me from just going with the guys that have been doing this, the guys' names that are out there? Because at the end of the day, I'm looking for a product that's going to work, correct? And at the end of the day, a ladder is a ladder is a ladder, right? So why is this different?
I think it's different from the way that we came after this market, quote unquote. You know, just to speak a little bit about Diversified Fall Protection, we're an engineering firm that focuses completely on fall protection. That's what we do day in, day out. So we didn't look at this market from a commodity-based Me Too style of market. We looked at a product and we asked ourselves, how could we make this product better? How could we make it more user-friendly? How could we make it more efficient? And most importantly, how could we make it safer? You're gonna have faster install time, which obviously increases your efficiency, increases your dollars. But you're gonna be able to provide to your client a level of comfort based on all these other attributes to our ladder that the competition doesn't have out there. You know, I can't sit here and say that our competition can guarantee their ladders can meet the fall arrest loads. I can guarantee that ours does,
Okay.
because we are a fall protection company. I can't sit there and guarantee that the competition will give you any technical assistance on a ladder if you need it. You know, Diversified Fall Protection prides themselves on education and technical assistance.
Okay, I guess, well then the last question for me would be, where do I buy the ladder?
You can obviously come directly from us, or you can reach out to your local Fastenal. They all carry the Easy Series, and you can reach out to them and say, this is the ladder that I need, and they'll be able to get it to you as well.
Matt and Mike, thank you both for your insight when it comes to the fixed access ladders. Remember, we want everyone in the field to stay safe and come home just as they came into work each and every day. Once again, thank you all for listening to the premiere episode, and stay tuned for more episodes soon on All Things Fall Protection Podcast.